Hi, everyone. Thank you to all for joining us for our second Connecting Communities event, our first Lunch and Learn here at the Michigan Israel Business Accelerator. The MIBA is a economic development nonprofit organization that's the state's lead for international trade with Israel. So thank you all for joining. We have a great presentation today where we are going to learn about some awesome opportunities to receive funding for your R&D in Israel. We have Bernard from our team leading us, and we will be, please share any questions you have in the Q&A. At the end of the presentations, we will go through a few questions. So thanks for joining again, and thanks to our speakers. I'm going to pass it over to Bernard.
Great, thank you, Rachel, and welcome everyone. We are beyond excited to share this with you. It's not a new program, by the way. It's just one that we just want to make sure folks know is out there, and we'll get into that as we go along. It's one of those things that I always laugh at when I look at the statistics. Ohio companies seem to take advantage of this grant more than Michigan, and I do not like losing to Ohio in anything. So it's one of the reasons why we decided to have this program and share it with you. Real quickly, I want to just for those of you that are joining that don't know who we are and the MIBA, I think most of you are fairly familiar, but just wanted to make sure. By the way, before I get started, I do want to acknowledge some esteemed guests that we have here as well. We have Itai Baran on the line listening in from the Consul General's office to the Midwest, always a good partner of ours. So very excited to have him join as well. So thank you for that, Itai. So again, just really quickly to get into the Michigan Israel Business Accelerator and who we are. We've been around in one form or another for a while. So we've been doing this for a while in our current iteration since 2017, but you can go back as far as 2007 when individuals in Michigan saw the need for a stronger connection to Israel on a business level. And in 2017, under the leadership of, at the time, Governor Snyder, is when we really moved this into a new level and really said, okay, how can the state of Michigan benefit from a stronger business relationship with Israel? And so here we are, the Michigan Israel Business Accelerator. As Rachel already said, we are the state of Michigan's lead for all international trade activities between Michigan and Israel, really to drive economic prosperity and job creation in the state of Michigan. Our mission statement, we selected these words very carefully. We really look to accelerate Michigan's economic growth, one Israeli innovation at a time. And on the Israeli side, we want them thinking Michigan. We want Michigan to be that premier partner for Israelis as they think about coming to the U.S. And a program like this and helping Michigan companies understand how they can take advantage of this is one tool in our tool belt, but a very important tool at that. Some of you might be asking, why Israel? Why is there a Michigan Israel Business Accelerator? What gives here? And it's really because Israel, it's known as the startup nation, of an incredibly innovative country, got over 9,000 startups per capita, always ranked very high, number one right now in R&D expenditures as a percentage of their gross domestic product. International firms from all over the world are active in Israel for good reason. So lots of reasons why Israel is a superb target to partner with to help Michigan grow and be prosperous. When you really look at the strengths of Israel and the strengths of Michigan, these are the sectors that we focus on because these are the strengths of both areas. Not to say that if there are industries outside of these six that we won't entertain them, but in terms of our proactive outreach as we're going through this, these are the six sectors. Mobility is probably the one that even Israelis think of when they think of Michigan, but the other ones are not so much. They don't think of Michigan first. Not a lot of people know Michigan's strength in the defense industry, for instance, advanced manufacturing, health tech, sustainability tech, and food and ag tech is kind of where we spend our time and where we really look for synergies from companies on both sides of the pond, if you will. This is how we do it. We're really famous for our matchmaking. This is what we do. We meet Israeli companies, meet Michigan companies, and then kind of like Match.com, I guess, if you will. We try and find the right matches to help both sides, help the Michigan companies and the Israeli companies grow and succeed. We're famous for our trade delegations as well, and we do work both sides of the pond, by the way. If you, as Michigan companies, most of our audience is made up of Michigan companies right now. If you are looking to export to Israel, we are the state of Michigan's export office to Israel, so we can help with that as well. But as you would imagine, a lot of our traffic, if you will, is Israeli companies that are coming to Michigan and us trying to help and find the right partners for them. One quick word on the elevator. That's where I'm reporting from live here, and Rachel as well. This is our office in downtown Detroit. It's also a landing zone for Israeli companies that they can come and get free office space, wraparound services to help them succeed here. We just finished up with a record year in 2023, over 1,200 connections that we helped coordinate, leading to just over $7 million in activity of companies coming here. And we expect an even bigger 2024. It's already started off really, really strong. Couple of, at least one example I wanted to share with you, great company of SkillReal that it has really, and just announced this week, finally, after months and months of work by a lot of people, that they are opening SkillReal USA here in Michigan. And it's a shining example of a company that has incredible technology that can really help our manufacturers. They're digital twin, probably going to do a poor job of explaining it, but digital twin technology that can help production lines. Incredible, groundbreaking technology. And a really good, from our perspective, a really good example of how the MIBA was able to use an array of tools in our toolbox, from incentive dollars from the state to grant programs that we get connected with, and then a great partner that they were able to connect with that really helped them grow here in Michigan. And we're just excited that they're going to be hiring, creating 20 jobs here in Michigan. Just a really good example of an Israeli company that's chosen to make it here in Michigan. Can't go without thanking our sponsors. These are the folks that really make us go. So special thanks to the Michigan Economic Development Corp. They are our major funders as the state of Michigan's lead for economic development in Israel, but also Polly Singer, William Davidson. I won't read the rest of these, but I just wanted to at least acknowledge all of our great partners that help us do what we do and keep us going and make it free, for a free service for all of you and all of our Israeli companies as well. These are the various ways you can get a hold of us and follow what we're doing. We ask that you follow us on LinkedIn for sure, because that's where we spend a lot of our time making sure we get our word out about all of our activities. So with that is a quick explanation of who the MIBA is. And now we want to get to and bring on to the webinar Andrea Yonah from the Bird Foundation. And when Andy we'll have, I've known Andy, had the pleasure of knowing Andy for several years now. She's based in New Jersey, but she has been a great partner to the MIBA. And so, Andy, if you want to turn your camera on. And
thank you very much, Bernard. Bernard and I have known each other for a long time, and I have to say I've always been a big fan of the Michigan Israel Business Accelerator. Always done a great job of connecting companies, and we're really proud to be partners. We couldn't connect to companies as well without partners that are local. So Bird Foundation, it is an acronym. Bird is nothing to do with birds, and actually not technically a foundation. It's more of a fund. It's a binational fund between the U.S. and Israel, funded by the government, the federal government of the United States and the government of Israel. It stands for Binational Industrial Research and Development. Started back in the 70s, believe it or not, with a binational endowment where each government put in equal amounts of money, created a $110 million endowment, and we use the interest on the endowment to fund the projects that we're supporting. Overall, the program was created to encourage the joint development and commercialization of innovative technologies by funding projects between U.S. and Israeli companies. We have a board of governors that consists of both governments. For our general program, we have the NIST from the Department of Commerce, State Department, Department of the Treasury, and similar ministries on the Israeli side, the Israel Innovation Authority, Ministry of the Economy, Ministry of Finance. They make up our board and are those that select our projects. How does it work? So this is a risk-sharing mechanism between the countries and between the companies. And what we're doing is we're putting in up to 50% of the combined project budget between a U.S. and an Israeli company that are working together. There's a cost share requirement, so the companies are putting in the other 50%. From the bird side, we can put in up to 1.5 million. That's the maximum that we can put in towards each project. And that's divided by the two companies respective to each company's development budget. The other part of it is what's called a recoverable grant. So how is it a grant and recoverable? It works kind of like an evergreen fund. If a project is successful, then they repay us. They repay us on a annual royalty basis, but from revenue specific to the project that we funded. If they're not successful for whatever reason, they don't repay us anything. If they're partially successful, it's partial. So overall, this is a government fund. It's non-dilutive and it's capped. So I think that's the important part. Anything that we get back from any particular project goes right back to fund other projects above and beyond what our yearly budget allows. And it also demonstrates to governments that we're doing a good job in picking good projects. We fund projects in all industry sectors, with the exception only of military-specific technologies, which we don't get involved with. But we're active, and you'll see here in the pie chart, especially healthcare, medical, the clean energy technologies, which I'll explain in a little bit, got some extra funding from the DOE and the Israeli Ministry of Energy. Therefore, it makes up a larger part of the pie. But you can see we fund a lot of different industry sectors. What are we looking for in our projects? So we want to see that first and foremost, there's good innovation. We want to see that there's good synergy between the two companies. That it's kind of a win-win. They're both sharing in the risk and sharing in the gain. They can quantify a market opportunity, and that they can demonstrate a sound commercialization strategy. Why do companies come to us? I mean, we're putting in up to $1.5 million, which is already it was already nice. But since we're oftentimes working with very large companies, I mean, all size companies from small to large, but why are companies interested in this type of program? Again, funding is always important, surprisingly, even from large companies, but also it's this structure that provides more better partnership support, as well as access to innovative technologies on both sides, validation from the two governments, which is why they selected the project, and ability to access markets, more capabilities for both sides. And the countries are supportive of this because it's providing more foreign direct investments, more import and export, and overall improving relations between the two governments. It's been a successful program for the two governments, and you can see by here we started with $110 million, and we've now granted almost $700 million, with $10 million calculated that was generated by this program overall. And we've approved over 1,000 projects, so it's been very successful. And because of that, we've received some additional funding to create a program specifically for energy, alternative renewable energy, clean energy technologies. It is our upcoming cycle. So for any of you companies out there in energy related fields, we have our call for proposals up with a deadline of July 1st for the first executive summary. It requires by this point 2 companies that are working together, or a company and a university in this program. And we can talk about how you can find partners later in the webinar. And finally, before we get to the highlight of this webinar and our featured speaker, one of our Michigan-based companies that we're very proud of, I just wanted to highlight 2 other projects with 2 great Michigan-based companies. Both of them, interestingly enough, approved in the end of December of 2015. This one was a sustainable concrete material with an Israeli company called eConcrete, together with a established Michigan-based company called Besser, to enable that sustainable concrete to be used in marine life, to allow for marine life to grow along the coastline. And the other being iRule, the company in Michigan, partnering with Kramer on a solution for automated audio and video control for integrators. And that ended up in iRule being acquired by Kramer, which was also a successful outcome. And finally, you can see all of our projects on our website. We have a database. There are 15 projects that we funded in Michigan. But remember, that doesn't include all the great Israeli companies that end up moving and setting up operations in Michigan, and others. So we think we can improve that, get more companies to know about this program. And together with the Michigan-Israel Business Accelerator, we're happy to help you to find the right partner. So with that, thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions later on in the webinar.
Andy, thank you so much, and for getting all that information across in a concise manner. Now I will introduce Harold Martin and have him come on the line here. Harold, good to see you. We want to bring Harold on. This is Harold leads as CEO of a great Michigan company that has taken advantage of a bird grant in the past. And so we wanted to give you guys a real live experienced person to talk to and answer questions of. So first of all, I want to have Harold introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his company.
Sure. I am Harold Martin, the chairman and CEO of Martin Technologies. And I will share a little bit more about our company. But I want to first off start by saying thank you. Thank you for having me on, as well as thank you to your overall organization, MIBA, as well as the Bird Fund. We found it very, very instrumental in what we have been seeking to do. And so it's been really great. So we live in a time today of where disruption and transformation is so critical. And while we have a history of so many prior accomplishments, we have to be thinking forward about next steps and what's that right next fit. With that being said, our company has a pleasure of doing business for just about every major car company in the world. And each of these companies are very demanding. They have their own business case. And we have to try to make sure that we can find relevance, significance, and a business case that can support our partnership with them. So my company was started back in 1996 and started with just 4 employees. And so as you can see here, many milestones of growth. And today, gosh, go figure, where did the time go? We've now been in business for 29 years. And I'm here to share with you that we're more excited about the next 25 years than we are the last 29. We really have a good, clear path of what we're doing out through year 2050. But again, we live in this world that surrounds us with disruption. And we were really pleased to be aligned with a partner that could help us carry forward. With that being said, the conception of the ESPDM, we were really excited to try to help come up with the name as well as the direction of the product. And it's really stands for Electronic Smart Power Distribution Module. As you know, vehicles today, every one of the vehicles have a number of computers on board, which require a tremendous amount of wiring throughout the vehicle. This is what a typical vehicle looks like. It's almost your spaghetti, and it's organized, and yet each of these have functions. But in the real world, you live through many challenges. 12,000 feet of wiring. And it's very expensive, and it has major warranty challenges, et cetera. Highly complex. You have last-minute changes that are made to try to be compatible with a given port or wire circuit, and many of these complexities are part of the norm. But with our smart ESPDM, you get to become value add. You get to become a smart wire that gets rid of a lot of yesterday's complexities, and you start to bring true value adds that can be game changer to the industry. So we have been really excited about bringing those kinds of innovations forward. As we look at those systems, you can now start to see how and where the end customers are for those. And there's quite the plenty of markets that truly can be now applicable to where we're finding customer interest and fits. Now, as we think about that, it's pretty simple in terms of what our componentry looks like there. Certainly, it's very smart in having a microprocessor in there that gives us a lot of in-gate and a lot of algorithms that we can develop from. And yes, there's a lot of features in there that are unique to what we're doing here. But also, as we started to spin this off for different other applications, it has been really exciting to talk to, many other industries outside of automotive that share an interest. When you think about traditional aircraft, it has tremendous amount of wire in it from end of unit to front of unit. And this brings mass, it brings cost, it brings complications, the same kinds of problems that exist in automotive. But as you look at the old technology versus the new technology, truly game changing, and the ability to be part of a future direction that has great relevance. So we're real excited about this and what it's meant, and look forward to our future with it. So with that being said, I look forward to hearing your questions and sharing why we're so excited to be part of this.
Great. Thank you. And it's fascinating technology from my end. And so really interesting to see all of that. I'm curious, and Andy, you can jump on too. So we'll shift back into question and answer. But really, I want to start with you, Harold. I'm curious, your partner on this bird grant was Redler out of Israel. What did each of you bring to the table, and how did it come about? How did you guys meet, and what was Redler bringing to the table for you?
Yeah, so Redler had an interest in our defense space, And while in the defense space, they talked preliminarily about their technology and looking for a partner. So it was a liaison in that space. Actually got the two of us introduced, and then very quickly we saw the synergies of being able to work together. They were very strong in their electronics, in having some circuit design and capability in that space. And then came us to say, well, what about expanding that envelope to be able to have automotive significance? And talked about the various ways it could be applied in the automotive industry.
Great, and I don't know if you might be putting you on the spot here. I don't know if you could even talk to it, but how did Redler benefit from this relationship at the end of the day? I think you might have mentioned it a little bit, but I'm just kind of curious for Israeli companies that are looking to do this, what was their benefit ultimately?
Well, Redler benefited in a number of ways. One, we have a perspective on our market, being it the automotive. We also have a perspective on North America and where things are headed and the kinds of needs that are out there. We also were able to talk to them about the technology, where it had strength, and then also where it needed continuous improvements. So being able to challenge the system and being able to see it on expanded platforms and being able to bring those kind of value differentiators to it so that it could stand the test of what was there. So also we quickly started testing in our labs, and we were running it around the clock 24/7, and so we got to learn about the endurance of it, and so it was both an engineering feedback, it was a marketing feedback, it was a business case along with commercialization.
That's great. And Andy, we heard how Harold and Redler got connected, but I'm curious from your perspective. We've got all these Michigan companies online listening to us, all excited about possibly getting some of their R&D funded through this grant. How do they find? What has your been experience about how U.S. companies find those partners in Israel?
Well, I want to take one small step back and say, after seeing all these different projects and some of them which succeed and some of them don't succeed, I found there's a common denominator that has nothing to do with technology, and it's all about the people and the relationships. And successful projects always have a strong, committed champion. So I think that Harold Martin is a true example of that. Just a strong, committed champion to that project that gave it the priority that every project needs from its leadership. So first and foremost, in order to have a successful project between two companies, you really do need to see commitment on the behalf of both companies. This needs to be a real priority for them. So that is, you see a real example of that type of a champion in Harold Martin. So thank you, Harold, for that. But as far as kind of the matchmaking component, the first and most important thing is to be able to conceive of what kind of partnership or collaboration that you're looking for. So I think sometimes the most challenging part of this program is coming, especially on the U.S. side. The Israeli side, companies are used to partnering. They have to partner. It's a small country, and in order to get to market, they need partners. So a partnership is almost second nature. For U.S. companies, that's not necessarily always the case. I think as we become a more global world, it's becoming more and more the case. And companies are recognizing that they can leverage external innovation in order to strengthen what their company is doing. So the first thing is to say, well, what kind of collaboration am I looking for? Without really knowing that, you can't really identify the right partner. So typically, you'll see three types of collaboration. One type of synergy is really complementary technologies. So one company has software and one company has the hardware. to simplify it. Another is the integration of one company's technology into the platform system or product of the other. So you're really taking a component of one company's technology and adding it to kind of the larger product platform or system of the other. And the third, I would say, is a type of pilot. So you'll see a company, typically these are pilots in the United States because that's the go-to-market endpoint. So you'll see typically an Israeli company with some technology that's already been proven in Israel. They have a POC. They haven't just started. They're already at, let's say, Series A or beyond in their funding. But in order to really get to market in the U.S., they have to be able to demonstrate that it works in the U.S., not just in Israel. And we see those frequently with hospitals, with utilities. So that, I would say that's the third kind. So once you've determined what kind of partner you're looking for, you're fortunate that you have Bernard and his team, that they can help you. We can also help you with BIRD. It's really a team-oriented approach, and we have kind of a way that we do it, but we really do it together as a team. We set up introductory calls with companies. After those calls, they kind of go off, have their own technical discussions, and they'll come back to us if they think that they have a reason to move forward and propose and submit a collaboration proposition to us.
Yeah, great. I mean, you already gave the commercial, but I'll just jump in and say yes. That's what the MIBA can definitely help. In addition to the folks at BIRD, just yesterday we had a call from someone who that couldn't make this webinar but wanted to know more, and so Andy and Lisa Rosenbaum from my team and Brian from Orb got on the call, and now both MIBA and BIRD can kind of start going out now that they've got the concept in their mind, and we can leverage our networks to help find companies, and that's exactly how it works. So easy as that, right? I guess, and Andy, I want to hear about the submission process, but maybe I want to start with Harold first and just ask him, thinking back to submitting for this grant, I'm sure our Michigan companies kind of want to know about that process. How much time commitment was it for you as the champion of it, or your team? Just things like that to set the proper expectations for everyone.
Well, thank you for the question. I also want to go back and thank Andy for just kind words, and it means a lot. And as you roll your sleeves up each and every day to come in and really try to make a difference and lead a program to be successful, and it really requires commitment. It does. And yes, we're not on the same time zone, and yes, we speak different languages, but it's a great example that for us and all of the Israel companies that we've ever worked with, it has been a success, because I think we learned a lot about different cultures and how to work together and all of that. So yes, you gotta go put that time in. You've got to, identify amongst yourselves where are your strengths and where are your weaknesses, and how do you complement each other. And if you need a consultant, that you're able to bring that piece into it as well. So those have been some really interesting pieces for us as we were evolving with that. But the Redler team was really, really good to work with. They were very cooperative. They quickly recognized that we were different than them, and that we were bringing different messaging that needed to come into fold, and likewise they were to us, right? So it was really some lifting, if you will, finding that common ground whereby you really got to appreciate each other's strengths and yet recognize the areas of where you still needed help.
That's great. Yeah, Andy, I don't know. First of all, back to that for a second, Harold, because when I was talking to you last week in preparation for this webinar, you mentioned about, Andy mentioned earlier about how important the people are, but you mentioned, that this has really grown into a friendship between you and the folks at Redler, and these days you're, with what's going on in Israel. It's more about how are they doing and everything. But it's important to note that business happens between people, right? It's not, it's sure it's Martin, the company, and Redler, the company, but it's Harold and everyone you worked with at Redler that made it happen. So thank you for that as well. So.
Yeah, to add lib to that, certainly, I am bonded to them for the rest of my life. We have built that level of respect and friendship, and so I know the what's going on over there, so I care so dearly about them. But I also, pre that, I was excited that they were able to take some of the foundation that we built and add to their own business case, and that they were able to, complement themselves in other countries with other customers, and that we were uplifting each other.
That's great. Great to hear. I love it. Andy, I don't know if you could talk a little bit more about the submission process in general and bring that in.
Sure. So all of our cycles are pretty short, so about 3 months from beginning to end. I would say most of the hard work goes into figuring out who your partner is and what your project's going to be. Once you know that, I think you're building first your executive summary. That's the first part of our submission process. That's the July 1st deadline for our energy, particularly for our energy cycle. We always encourage companies to share that with us ahead of the deadline. In fact, companies can send us a draft version of it. We'll review it. We'll give at least one round of written feedback on that. We'll speak to both companies. And I think that that kind of level of involvement in helping companies to qualify for the program is one of the differentiators of our program than other government grants. Once the companies have submitted their executive summary, we determine internally in the BIRD team if the project qualifies enough to recommend that the company submit a full-scale proposal. We recognize that a full-scale proposal takes some effort, and we don't want companies to take that upon themselves if we don't think they have a good chance of being approved. So in this case, the full-scale proposal deadline for the energy cycle is September 5th. Then the technical evaluators review the projects. On the U.S. side, to the NIST, on the Israeli side, to the Israel Innovation Authority. These are evaluators that have technical experience in the project that's being submitted. And then our board in November for Bird Energy, made up of the different government stakeholders, DOE, state, treasury, and similarly on the Israeli side, they select the projects for submission. The next general cycle will start in September with the executive summary, typically the first week, with full-scale proposal submissions in October, and then we have a board meeting in December. And we're currently in our first cycle of the year for general cycle, which starts in March and ends in June. We have 2 other cycles, one for Homeland Security and one for cybersecurity. That was additional funding that came from the Department of Homeland Security and the Israeli Ministry of National Security. But we don't have, currently we don't have deadlines for those particular programs, so I didn't go into it that much. All of these can also apply to our general cycle. So I always advise companies, don't tie yourself to a particular energy versus general versus homeland. I think the important thing is, when are you ready to submit? When is the timing right for your companies? And to work together with us, because we're going to help lead you through that process.
Great. I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to bring that up because you've always told me that there are dates on the website for submission deadlines, but don't have that drive your decision. So if you're a Michigan company thinking about doing this, let's just start the conversation and start. Sometimes, as Andy said earlier, finding the right partner is the longest part. So then we'll worry about when to submit deadline wise. So thank you for that. I believe I've hit all the questions that have come online. I guess the one question I had on my end, Can you explain like the actual funding mechanism? So well, how does that work at the at the end of it all?
As I explained before, there's two components to it. One is the matching requirement. So we're putting, like I said, it's dollar to dollar, and the minimum work share percentage that company needs to be doing is 30%. A company can't be doing under 30% to qualify. So 30-70 is the minimum split for development, thereby also receiving the relative match. So companies doing 30%, they're receiving a 30% match to 50-50. So that's as far as the matching. And matching can come pretty much from any source with the exception of another federal program. So let's say you're receiving an SBIR grant, you wouldn't be able to use another type of federal funding as a match for bird funding because our funding is also federal. However, state funding, it's depending on the states. Different states have different funding mechanisms, and state funding can be used as a match. And I would say most typically companies are using in-kind contributions, as well as I would say smaller companies will use the bird approval to go out and raise the necessary matching funds for their project. So getting the approval of bird gives companies the validation to go out, not just raise their match, but I would say a significant amount of funding above and beyond what we're putting in. And in fact, we have statistics, which I didn't bring today, that show, significant funding raised as a result of companies receiving bird funding. So that's with regard to the match. Regarding the repayment obligation, again, if a project is not successful, they're not repaying us. It is capped to 1.5 times of what the company is receiving. It's a yearly 5% revenue royalty that continues until either the company has said, well, we're not using this anymore, therefore, there won't be anything or any more to repay, or they've come to the point where they've fully repaid, or they've come to a negotiation with us. So I don't want to get too much into the financials, but that's in general how the repayment mechanism works.
Good. Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, like I said, I haven't seen any other questions coming in. So I want to give, first of all, a big thank you to both Andy and Harold for taking the time. Time is always a precious commodity, and anytime you can share your time with us, I really appreciate it. Harold, it's been great to meet you through this process. I'm glad to have found a new friend on the Michigan side. I guess I'll give you both, if you have any, I hate to put you at a spot, any last words, any questions that you might have gotten in the past about the bird grant that I haven't asked or that the audience didn't ask. Harold, if you want to go first.
Sure. I would encourage any and everyone that has an interest here to investigate it and to pursue it. I found that yes, it had some heavy lifting to go complete all of the criteria out there that was required, but it actually helped us in our overall business strategy because it forced us to plan out that business strategy and to plan out every phase of it, from the marketing to the finance to the customers. Every layer actually helped us. So my